I must mention 5 AK-47s were found there. AK-47s. Now, this is a very high caliber weapon. And it's related to war. You don't carry, it's not a knife. It's an AK-47, 5 of them. And then there was also an R1, there were also another assortment of weapons. And all in all, the group was around 20, if not 21, who were caught there. And all of them, on seeing police approaching, they responded by gunpowder. Now, I read a newspaper called the Sunday Tribune, and I picked up 2 things there. There was a phrase that was used, I think, by the journalists who wrote that, talking about trigger-happy police. Trigger-happy police. They don't talk about trigger-happy criminals. They don't talk about trigger-happy other criminals other than those who get caught in sins, in crime scenes that form the context thereof. A number of crime scenes in the near past in KZN. And then they start raising those. We're in a democratic country. We accept different opinions in whatever situation you're find. But I think media need to give police, South African police, space. We can't be complaining about everything. You complain about high rising or high levels of crime, and we condemn police for not acting. And when they act, and they get prevented from acting via shootings at them. And then when they protect themselves, defend themselves, and then we're the ones who come forward immediately. And we totally say nothing about communities that from time to time fall victim of such killing gangs. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
All right, for more on this, we're joined by Adèle Kirsten, Gun-Free South Africa Director. Good evening, Adèle. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, before we get to the latest shootout between police and suspects, I just want you to share your views on the police minister's stance that police will retaliate without hesitation if suspects fire at law enforcers.
Good evening, Mfundo. I think, for Gun-Free South Africa, obviously, our area of expertise is on weapons and guns rather than policing. Mm-hmm. But the law is very clear that if your life is in direct danger, you can defend yourself. So, I think there will most likely be investigations to understand what happened in that moment. Mm-hmm. But I think the important thing that the story demonstrates is how common weapons are. And in fact, they're the weapon of choice. Guns are the weapon of choice, whether it's in cash in transit heists, whether it's mass shootings, whether it's political assassinations. So recovering the weapons is absolutely critical. And I think the Western Cape Provincial Commissioner asked a really important question, and this is a question for SAPS, is where did these guns come from? Mm-hmm. Because R1s are military issue. But AK-47s are not generally allowed for licensing for civilians. Yes. And they're not, it's the R5 is used in police. So one of the questions Gun-Free is asking and would like the minister and certainly SAPS to interrogate is, are these weapons that were previously handed in an amnesty and have made their way out through the back door back into the criminal market? Mm-hmm. These could potentially be what we call the Prinsloo guns, which is the class action lawsuit that we have against the Minister of Police. So it's absolutely critical that once the guns are recovered, there needs to be a track and trace process so that the source of these weapons is identified, and then that will guide the police in terms of where are the loopholes? Where's this leakage coming from? How do we need to intervene? Gun-free would also support the establishment of specialist firearms units that have a dedicated kind of intelligence gathering capacity. So this is good news. The recovery of weapons at any crime scene is always good news. What's
Adèle?
really important is to make sure that they don't go back out the door a second time.
You say the question posed was very important, that where do these guns come from? But as important as the question may be, is it not too late in the game now? Because the killings have become common occurrence. We've been talking about the proliferation of guns, how easily accessible they are. So at this point, one would assume they would have done extensive research as to where these guns come from.
It would appear that that's not happening, certainly not under the previous administration.
So what exactly needs to happen here? Because we've even had journalists who have done very important exposés which seem to point to some sort of collusion with other very corrupt police officials who would give these guns to some of these criminals.
So, Mfundo, there really are three main sources or ways in which guns move from the legal into the illicit market. One is through loss and theft. And that's from state armories, it's from SABC 13 stores, it's from house invasions. So that's our biggest source. Every single day, close on 24 guns are lost and stolen, mainly from illegal stocks. So that includes your state and your civilians, and then also private security. The second source is through fraud and corruption. And that happens at so many different points. It happens between police officers and people at local station level. But it also happens in the Central Firearms Registry. It happens with dealers. It happens with people who are accredited to certify that you've applied for your license and done X number of hours of shooting. Those things can be bought. This is a lucrative trade. And so there are many opportunities for fraud and corruption. It's a really important part or factor that contributes to guns moving from the legal into the illicit market. And then there's your cross-border trade. So the SABC knows this. The thing is, once you've recovered the weapon, you need to track it back to where it came from. But already the clues are there. R1s, we know that's military issue.
Yes.
R5s, we know that's police issue. AK-47s, you have to be saying, you know, where did that come from? Was it in a state armory? Because it's not going to be coming generally from civilians. It's certainly not coming from, you know, old Liberation War caches. That was, you know, 30, 35 years ago. So this
and those arms were probably surrendered.
Well, they're very old by now. And what you see is there's an easy supply of guns. So that's why when there are these kind of crime recovery operations, you will see significant numbers of weapons. We're not just talking one or two. So that then tells you that there's a surplus of weapons. Weapons are easily available. They're easy to get through the illegal market.
So what does this mean for your cause? Pardon me for interjecting there. So what does this mean for your cause? Because you're advocating for a society free of guns, but you've got citizens that watch such reports where you're now hearing of police officers that they themselves are flabbergasted that where do these guns come from? Now, they're being called upon to surrender their weapons and be at the mercy of criminals. What does that then mean for your cause?
So what you have to do is take a long-term perspective and a multidimensional and multi-sectoral approach to this. You need to mop up the illegal guns. You need to get them off our streets, out of our homes. But if the single biggest source of illegal guns is the legal market, you have to control the legal market. And that's why you need a strong gun law. You have to reduce the availability of guns. And part of that is about reducing demand, but it's also enforcing the existing gun law. We have this experience in the past, where in 1998 we had 34 gun deaths a day. After introducing a strong new gun law that was enforced properly together with specialist firearms units, we reduced that to 18 gun deaths a day. We are back to 34 gun deaths a day. And I mean, I think the signs from the new Minister of Police are very positive. We've seen this in the last couple of weeks of really prioritizing addressing the issue of gun violence and gun crime.
Adèle, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Gun Free South Africa's Adèle Kirsten.